Hello and welcome to Take a Beat. My name is Tirza and I'm the digital pastor here at IES. And Take a Beat is an IES podcast where we invite you to pause, chat about things that matter, only to launch ourselves back on the beat. So this episode we have Pastor Mike and Chelly Rody. And this is not Pastor Mike's first time on our podcast, but this is Sister Chelly's first time on our podcast.
The beautiful Chelly Rody.
Yes, because she normally are busy during the times when we are recording. So hi, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Nice.
Yeah. So actually, this is recorded the last Thursday they're in town.
Yeah.
We waited till the very last minute to record a podcast with the two of you. But this is not a goodbye podcast. This is a see you later podcast because as I'm thinking about your time in Indonesia, you had a phase 1.
We did.
That's how you met, right?
Phase 1A, Phase 1B.
Okay, there's a phase 1A, phase 1B.
Oh, that was a long time ago,
What was phase 1B?
Phase 1A is when we were single. Phase 1B was when we were married.
Ah.
And in between was grad school.
And our wedding.
Yeah.
Wait, so you got married and then this was the first place you lived in as a couple? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we dated here.
We dated here, and then we got married.
After we were married, we came back and we lived here as a couple.
2 more years.
It was actually really good for us because it was neither her culture nor mine, so it allowed us to have kind of an intermediary place to learn how to relate to each other.
This phase 1 is also when the whole fries incident happened, right?
Oh, fries.
Phase
no,
1A.
we don't want to talk about that.
Well, he brought it up in his this coming sermon, but the last sermon, he brought it up.
He did. Now it's all out in the open.
Yeah.
I can't deny it.
So there is a question that I had, because now that you're here, I get to hear more of your take on things and not just Pastor Mike's take on things.
That's good.
So do you share fries now?
Of course, yes. I've always taken fries without permission. But it's a sign of endearment, of familiarity, right? He still asks me, would you like me to get you your own? But he doesn't ask it in that kind of, he says it, would you like me to get you your own? And then I say, no, I'm fine with taking your fries.
And so he orders more.
Yes.
Well, sometimes I just order a little more for me. If I get enough, eventually they're all mine.
So, okay, another question related to that. You have 2 boys. Do your boys share fries?
No. I think they take after you.
They usually order fries and don't eat them, and I get all their fries.
Yeah.
Oh.
But they usually.
They don't eat much of their fries.
Okay. Well, I had dinner with them not too long ago, and man, they Julius. He ate an entire burger in 3 minutes.
Okay.
When it comes to meat.
Burgers, ribs, steak, they eat very quick.
We discovered Julius' capacity to eat when we introduced him to barbecue ribs. He was about 5, and he was always such a super light eater, and when we'd go out to eat, he'd hardly eat anything. And then we got him a kids' ribs at Billy McHale's, which isn't there anymore. And he just scarfed them up. And the next time we got him a half slab, and he scarfed that up. And from then on, we knew we wanted him to eat protein. We got to get him barbecue ribs.
The funny thing is, we went to Red Robin. Julius had a burger, and James had the ribs.
Okay.
There you go. Well, good. He likes ribs too.
He likes ribs too.
Yeah. Okay, so phase 1A, phase 1B, and then what happened after phase 1B?
So after we left Jakarta, after we left Jakarta together as a couple, let's put it that way, we returned to the U.S., and it took a little bit, but we found ministry in a little town north of Seattle, south of Canada, called Ferndale. It's as small as it sounds, especially back then. And we really felt like God put us there. It wasn't necessarily that we were anxious to be there, but it was just the way the circumstances worked out very clearly. God worked it out and actually answered a few of our prayers in the process of putting us there. And so we pastored initially it was called Ferndale Assembly of God, but the name eventually was changed to Whatcom New Life Assembly. Whatcom is the name of the county, so it was just a good shift.
Yeah.
And you were there for, 13 years?
We were there for
13 years,
13
yeah.
years. So
Wow, I
that's
remember.
Started with a very difficult situation, complicated church history, and a lot of
there's a lot
issues.
of hurts.
And so, it just took a long time to work through a lot of that and grow. And we were growing in it too. We were learning about pastoring and caring for people and leading and all that.
And then when we came, there was also a group of people that have been there for a long time, and they also felt called to be in a church and stay there through the valleys. And we were able to grow together as I would call it our extended family.
Yeah.
And they were really extended family. My kids, a lot of their first movie, first pop, first camper experience, sleepover, and even their daughter, one of the families, their daughter is our boys' first babysitter. And so that Ferndale was a very special place for us
And your boys were born there.
Our boys were born there. Our boys grew up there.
We had a lot of great support there.
We have a lot, yes.
Both from church people who were really committed to see the church move forward, and eventually my parents moved up there, and that was really helpful when we had kids.
We had my boys really thrived in that place, and and it's funny. A lot of their memories are in the gym of the church and walking in the hallways and cleaning bathrooms, setting
Playing
up the
out in the
Christmas
grass.
tree, playing on the lawn,
Playing in the big tall grass
and
field.
even when we had a couple of Christmases where we had a lot of snow, they had so much fun. So lots of memories in Ferndale and also in the parsonage, that's where we lived next door to the church.
Great memories, strange memories, interesting memories, all kind. I mean, in 13 years, there's all kinds of
memories,
things.
and we got to know a lot of people from the community.
Yeah.
We got a lot. We knew very. We hardly know anybody. Did you know anyone that lived in the county before we moved there?
No, we were totally new to the place.
To the place.
By the end, I would say I would call the police chief a friend. His name was Mike, too. Believe it or not, he's taller than me, and about 30 years older than me. Good guy.
Yeah, and then our boys started.
This is me not being able to imagine someone taller than you.
Yeah.
He's really tall.
And
He's
really
about
skinny.
six,
Yeah.
six,
About 6'8".
6'8", very skinny, very, very tall. And then our boys started going to school. In their school, actually, their elementary school, we look out our window and there's the boys' school. So we got to know a lot of the boys' friends' families. So that was very good too. We had outreaches where we started with maybe 10 families, and then it grew, and we were very, very happy because we felt like, okay, this is the community the church is reaching out to, and I could think of the Easter egg hunt that we did, and we started with a small Easter egg hunt and became a big one. It became an outreach, and we had a full day of games and lunch and all that. So lots of memories.
We were in a low-income neighborhood, a lot of immigrants around. We did everything from partnering with community organizations to offer English courses. Eventually hosted the Boys and Girls Club, which is a huge thing in Ferndale, but their facility burned down, and they were getting ready to build a new one, and they didn't have a place, so we just opened the doors and allowed them to be in the church for about 3 years. So a lot of good things, a lot of good interaction with the community, really prepared the church for growth. It's almost doubled or around doubled since the
Exciting.
time we left, which is
Yeah.
what we really were looking forward
So
to.
before we go into the phase 2 of Indonesia, I have a personal question because we always talk about this. How I got connected with Pastor Mike was him letting me use his social security number for my phone plan. But I never got your take. Were you ever worried that some random person from Indonesia was going to use?
Well, you had a couple you had a couple things going for you, Tirza. We've known your name and we've known your first and last name even before we put a face to your name, right? We knew Christy.
Oh yes.
Christy was a trusted member of our Jakarta family, I would say. And when she came, we would have her over for all the holidays that the university students are not supposed to be on campus for.
Yeah.
So we had her. And we knew because her connection with you. And you were not just a friend, you were a very close friend. And then, because you are from Jakarta, okay, we've been there. We know we have a little bit of a connection. So
We know we can track you down. We can find your keluarga.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. So, yeah, well, if he says yes, okay, no problem. And what did we check our bill every month to see if Tirza was paying her bills? So no problem. Yeah.
Christy and I were helping build his credit.
Yeah, it was good for
maintain
us.
his credit.
Yeah.
So phase 2, you came back to Jakarta in 2013.
Correct.
Same year I came back
Yeah.
to Jakarta.
You came a little
back-
later, right?
Yes, you came back first. So what brought that about? Was it, I don't know, the call of the Lord, the call of PD?
Well, it's interesting, we had been in Ferndale, and when we went to Ferndale, we had a kind of a 5-year plan. It was going to be go to Ferndale, 5 years, and go back to Jakarta.
Okay.
And it didn't happen, and then at year 8, it didn't happen again. And we really felt like, okay, God still had work for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
I had this tremendous sense that
Our work is not yet
we weren't finished yet. And then
turned down.
in 2012 in November, in prayer and preparation for the coming year, I just really felt like God was saying, okay, you've accomplished what you came to do. The church is healthy, it's ready for growth, and you're free to start looking for whatever's next. So I talked to my wife, and we talked about it, we prayed about it. We didn't tell anyone else about it because we really felt like we wanted God to direct our steps.
Yeah.
And so we were praying about it for a while.
And it was we've been in that place for a long time. If we were thinking of moving, it's like uprooting not just us, but our boys and grandparents are there too, and they're very close to grandparents. So it's a big decision. But every year, is that okay? I'll tell the Christmas story. Every year we would have Christmas production for the kids, right? And so Mike is my sound guy because, yes, I think there was no one else.
Not a very good sound guy, but
is the sound guy. But so he was saying that he just muttered these words. I think this is the last Christmas production that I'm going to be doing this for. So he said, I think this is the last Christmas production that I will do here, or I will.
And I wasn't saying it because I was mad about it.
Yeah, he was just. It was like
It
out of
wasn't
the
like
blue.
giving up.
Like we were practicing, and then we came home, had a conversation. I think it's like I have the sense this is going to be the last production that we're going to have here. So that was in December, and so yeah.
So we were praying, the two of us. I may have talked to one of our district leaders about it, but I don't think so. And then in April, Pastor Dave called and said, hey, would you be interested in coming out and being the children's pastor at IES? We've been thinking about this for about 2 years. And it's like, I was thinking, wow, that's a long time to think about it. But, I was pastoring a church. We were lead pastor, had other leadership roles in our district, in our region. And I really felt like the church was going in a great direction, but I also had this thing in the back of my mind that, God had released us to something, and I wasn't expecting it to be being a children's pastor again. That's in the grand scheme of people's thinking. That's like, wow, you're going from lead pastor to children's pastor.
I was going to say, usually when people think of career trajectory in ministry, like going from lead pastor to children's pastor or youth pastor is like taking a step down.
It is often perceived that way by a lot of people. And I think for me, I was not ready to make that move in that first moment, but we did say we'd pray about it. We really did pray about it. And by the end of, the second week of praying about it, my sense was that God had called me to minister, and I have always said I would trust him to lead. Not go out looking for the thing, but let him bring it to us. So take us to where we need to go. And here was an opportunity that was in front of us. And if God's called me to pastor, then there's no age definition on pastoring. If God's called me to pastor people, then I'm going to pastor people. I'm going to grow people. And then I started to think about, well, if the size of my congregation in Jakarta is, 250 kids, that's a big jump. That's a lot of people. And plus get to work with 40 leaders and all that. And so it wasn't one of those things where we go, man, great job opportunity, let's go. And we had kind of given up on Jakarta already. We had kind of just thought, well, Jakarta's in the rearview mirror. So it's funny how it works out sometimes when you give up, then God says, okay, now that it's clearly me doing the work, let's bring it about.
So you moved, this is now phase 2 of Indonesia. And so you moved the boys, and the boys were how old?
They were 11 and 8.
Yeah. And so how was it in phase 2 with 2 boys? And now both of them have graduated and are in college. And so then it's been 11 years?
Yeah,
so
almost 11, yeah.
What were some of the highlights or even the challenges of the past 11 years?
Oh, even from the get-go, one of them was telling our boys, hey, we're gonna go to Jakarta, and the big thing is, will there be baseball? Because our boys are really into baseball. So we confirmed, yes, there's Little League. But one of the great experiences was we're telling them, and there's a little bit of weeping and
a little bit. I think there was a lot.
Joyce is a little bit anxious about it because we understand his personality is very change averse, and so he kind of runs off to the bathroom for a few minutes.
This is sobbing.
And then he comes out, and through light tears and a bit of hard breathing, he says, "If God's called us to go to Jakarta, then we just have to go to Jakarta.
We just have to go."
And that was the confirmation for us that it was going to work out, even though it might not be super easy.
Yeah, and then James was still young. I think he was more of piggybacking on Joya's emotions. He was sad, but and then he started crying when Joya started crying. And then when Joyous came out of the bathroom and declared those, that prophetic word. If God calls us, it's almost like if God calls us, who are we to say no? If God, and then we needed him to say that, and that was a confirmation. We needed to come from our boys. And then when Julius felt better, then James felt better too. So it was definitely an adventure. It was, and things came together very quickly. And by June, after Father's Day, I think is when we announced to the congregation, and then a month later was when we started packing, and the church just also rallied and helped us settle, helped us find, sell our things, had a garage sale.
One of the cool stories, and then we can get back to struggles.
Yes, and we can get back
One
to
of the cool Ferndale stories was when we decided to leave, I had a very clear sense in my mind of this particular guy was going to be the next pastor. Now, at that point, he'd been in ministry, but he was teaching in
Public
school, and he wasn't pursuing ministry, but I really felt like this was God's plan. I didn't tell the board. I didn't tell anyone except for my wife. And when we left, they started a search committee, and they started looking, and they didn't have a whole lot of people applying. There's a long history of that church that was unfortunately out there. It was a totally different church at this point. And then maybe
October.
3 weeks after we got here, he put his resume together and submitted it. And they took him right away. And it was just really encouraging for me to see that, God was in this process. And we could just trust him because we've seen it work.
That's right. That's right. God's track record is pretty good.
And those are good things to have that in your mind when struggles happen. So right away, we were here, and then once we get into school, school was really tough adjustment for our kids, particularly for our eldest, but also for our youngest. There were things that were just really difficult. It was a difficult school to get into. It was a difficult year to start with for our oldest. It was a big year, and of course he hadn't been in the system, and that was hard. But church was a safe place, and church was a place where our boys really felt connected to people.
Yeah, and even I remember even like for the boys and for you, both of you, your father passed away while you're here, right?
Yeah.
A year after, right?
So our parents came to visit for the first Christmas,
Yeah.
and that was great. And then somewhere along the way, after they got home, I guess my dad had a stent put in. And he'd never had any heart issues before, so we thought, everything's good. And then the day that we were heading off to go check out the new school. This is actually the second year we're here.
It's the beginning of the second year. So we've been here almost a year.
Yeah. So we're going to check out the new school, and we're driving down the road in Serpong. I could almost probably find the spot at the north end of the road. And I get this call from my mom, and she's kind of weeping and says, "Your dad just died." And I was about ready to
stop the car.
I was like, how do I deal with this? Because we're going to go check out this new school. My son's going to have an assessment to see where he fits in the new school. And so I just had to very calmly end the conversation, and I WhatsApp with Pastor Dave while we're on the way to the school.
He didn't tell us.
I couldn't tell them what was going on, just that, we'll talk about later. And the day went really well, and the kids had a good time checking out the school, and my wife had been subbing there, so she knew the school. And afterwards, we went over to Pastor Dave and Gigi's house, and we all had a good cry.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty traumatic thing.
And so how is it, because you're torn, you're living here, and this is, that this is the call that God has for your family, but then you also have family there, and yes. And so how is that, living out God's call and for you to be right here when part of you kind of want to be with family as well?
It's definitely not easy. My wife really was like, we'll go, and when we're all ready to go, we'll go. And I said, I need to go take care of my mom because no one's there to take care of her. And so my wife very graciously said, okay, you go ahead. So I went.
And Joyce also was graduating because it was the end of sixth grade.
From elementary.
So we did the graduation. I think we stayed here for about 10 more days. You were already gone. You left pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it was good that he had that time with your mom because
it was. We did the podcast on death and dying and dealing with it. One of the things my dad had always done was whenever they went on a trip, he'd always take me to his office and say, now here's the folder. This has everything in it. If we don't make it back, you can take care of it. So I get home after about a week, and I go in with my mom to the office, and we get out the folder and just start going through all that process of dealing with it.
Yeah.
And it's even just talking about it's emotional right now, but it was tough. And then even after that, when we left, knowing that my parents have a really cool place back then. It's 5 acres. They had a garden. They had a forest. They had yard. And
I think you showed that photo in one of your sermons.
Yeah. And how's my mom going to take care of this? What's going to happen with my mom? And my sister's there to help, but she's a long ways away too, and she has a pretty big family to take care of as well. So yeah, there's a lot of that anxiety about, and yet God has blessed our family.